Hello everyone, I'm Nilesh Maheshwari from Emorphis Health. Welcome to the episode of Healthcare Musings. And today we are discussing about a very fascinating topic about nuclear medicine. And nuclear medicine is a great tool, but it has to be administered with a great caution. And for that, and to discuss all about the nuances about nuclear medicine, we have a leading expert in nuclear medicine, Ron. So, Ron, welcome to the podcast. And why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Nilesh. And I'm really appreciative of your interest in this subject matter. And so I'm looking forward to today's podcast. I'm Ron Lattanze. I'm the CEO of Lucerno Dynamics and have been focusing on this issue, the administration of radioactive drugs, for about 7 years now.
Great. So Ron, let's start with basics. What is nuclear medicine, and what are the advantages? How it started, and what are the risks
Yeah.
associated?
So, full disclosure to get started, I am not a physicist and I'm not a physician, but I have surrounded myself with some of the top physicists and top nuclear medicine physicians in the world. So, I think I can talk, at least in layman terms, about this issue.
Sure.
Nuclear medicine is relatively recent type of healthcare in the last 100 years, really. And to put it in perspective, we think about nuclear medicine. Most people don't know what it is. They think of X-rays or CT scans where energy is being delivered through a patient from outside of the patient. Nuclear medicine is exactly the opposite. Okay, nuclear medicine is when they take a drug and they attach a radioactive isotope to the drug and they inject that into the patient's body, and the energy leaves the body in most cases for imaging purposes. So you can do an injection of a radioactive drug, and as the energy leaves the body, it provides information about the how the person's body is working that you cannot get from the type of CT scan or an X-ray. And then there's also some nuclear medicine where the energy stays within the body to try to treat disease. So that's therapeutic nuclear medicine and diagnostic nuclear medicine. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay. So that gives a perspective about nuclear medicine. So can you delve more into deeper about the specific challenges associated with nuclear medicine, and are there any specific concerns about it?
Yeah, so nuclear medicine uses medical isotopes which cause ionizing radiation, things like gamma energy, beta energy, alpha energy. And in layman's terms, ionizing radiation just simply means that when the radiation or the energy passes through the cell, it can change the atoms in the cells. And so a challenge of nuclear medicine is how do you control ionizing radiation to do what you want it to do, but not to hurt the patient at the same time if it's going to be damaging the cells, right? So that's a primary challenge in nuclear medicine. And from a provider standpoint, they want to protect their staff from handling radioactive drugs. And from the patient perspective, they want to make sure that the radiation is doing what it's intended and not having other consequences that increase the risk of using ionizing radiation. So that's really the balance that's trying to be managed in nuclear medicine.
So there must be a growing focus of the industry for the safety on the nuclear medicine. Can you elaborate on what are the safety efforts are being taken by the industry in this particular segment?
Sure. So I think in recent years, there's been an increased focus on putting regulations around how radiopharmaceuticals or radioactive drugs are manufactured and handled. And so there have been some recent regulatory changes around that to try to improve that. I haven't actually seen a growing focus in the industry in the United States in other areas. I haven't seen that. In Europe and in other parts of the world, there's, I think, an increased emphasis on radiation protection. In the United States, it's not uncommon, for example, when you have a nuclear medicine procedure, to see material that's provided by a hospital that doesn't really address a lot about the radiation. They'll use other words instead of radiation. And so I think there actually should be a higher level of focus in the United States on radiation protection.
Okay. So, specifically, how does Lucerno Dynamics approach towards this particular issue, and what are the innovative solutions you are developing?
So what we have developed at Lucerno Dynamics is we have taken a scintillating material, in this case a crystal, and we've combined it with the photomultiplier into a very small sensor, multiple sensors. And these sensors can be placed directly on the patient so that the scintillating material can sense the radiation, and the photomultiplier can count how many times the scintillating crystal is lighting up when it's exposed to radiation. And you can place those sensors directly on the patient passively. It's a passive technology, and that information can provide insight about radiation that's coming from inside the body in the general area of the sensor. And so in our particular case, by using those sensors near the injection of a radiopharmaceutical, we can gain insight into the quality of the administration of the radiopharmaceutical.
Okay. So, there is one system you have developed, which is LARA system. So, can you explain in the layman's term what actually is LARA system all about?
Yeah, so the LARA system is our first commercial application of our technology. And what the LARA system does is it compares one sensor output to another sensor output during the administration of a radiopharmaceutical. So if you can imagine putting one sensor on the arm where the injection is being done and the other sensor on the other arm, what we can tell is by comparing those two sensor results, we can tell whether excess radiation is left in the injection site where the administration happened, or whether it was injected, the radiation was injected completely into the system, into the patient's venous system, by comparing those two outputs. And we use that information to provide input or to provide some feedback to the clinicians who are doing the injections.
Okay. So, are there any specific areas where LARA system has a significant impact in the safety?
Yeah, so I think the LARA system has an incredible impact on the healthcare systems that are delivering radioactive drugs into patients. So the LARA system can provide feedback, as I mentioned before, to the clinicians to help them improve that process. So that's the primary area of healthcare where LARA actually provides help to the system.
Okay. So, can you explain which are the specific areas LARA system addresses the concerns of extravasation?
Yeah. So during the administration of a radiopharmaceutical, when the IV catheter is inserted into the patient's vein, if the tip of the catheter breaks through the back of the vein or erodes the inside of the vein and creates a hole in the vein, or during the administration of a radiopharmaceutical, there's so much pressure sent into the vein that it blows the vein up and the radiopharmaceutical leaks into the tissue. That's called an extravasation or an infiltration, okay? And that's not good for the quality and the quantification of the nuclear medicine imaging procedure that's going on. And it actually compromises the image in an unknown way. So if you're using that image to determine whether you have cancer or to determine whether your treatment's working or to determine the state of your perfusion of your heart or to examine your brain and see whether it's functioning the way it should be, the injection has to be done perfectly, okay? If you extravasate the patient and you leave radiation in the arm and the camera, the PET camera or the SPECT camera doesn't know that, then you have a compromised image, okay? In addition, you also have ionizing radiation stuck in the patient's tissue instead of circulating in the vein, and that's not a good thing. So what the LARA system does is three things. The first thing it does, it provides immediate feedback to the person doing the injection, whether they have extravasated or not. That's important to know if you're the patient, because if you have been extravasated, it's really critical that you know that. The second thing that it does is it can help the clinician assess how much radiation was left at the injection site, okay? So that's also an important feature of the product. I think the most important feature is the final feature. And what it does is the LARA system uses big data. So we do many injections with the clinicians, and based on what injections turn out well and what injections are extravasated, we can provide very specific feedback to a hospital system on what's causing extravasations to happen. It may be something as simple as only extravasations happen in a certain side of the patient, on the left side, for example. And we realize when we look at the situation that the chair that is being used to do the injection is up against the wall on the left side. And so, or one particular technologist has an issue in injecting patients with very, very low body weight or BMI, low BMI, so they're really, really thin. And we can provide additional training to that technologist to help them get better. Or they're using the wrong tools. They're using straight sticks instead of IV catheters, and that's causing their extravasation rate. So that big data feature is a really important feature that helps improve the process.
Okay. So, looking beyond the immediate improvements, how do you envision the advancements of radioactive material safety impacting the future of healthcare?
Yeah, so the advancements, I think when I step back and look at nuclear medicine, the amount of effort that hospitals and technologists use to ensure that things are as safe as possible, it's amazing. They do a great job. But there's one area where they have not had technology in the past to monitor, and that's the administration process. And arguably, that's the most important part of the process, right? It's the actual injection of the radiopharmaceutical into a patient's vein. And when you think about healthcare today, I mean, people are doing some amazing things to make sure that healthcare is being delivered appropriately. Now they're starting to wear cameras on physicians inside the operating room, right? To make sure that the procedure is going a certain way and to learn from it and to teach others how to do better. But in the role of nuclear medicine, I mean, it's sort of like, I want to say sometimes, would you think I'm crazy if I told you that in the injection of a radioactive drug into a patient, there's no effective way today to monitor that injection to make sure it was done properly? So, to me, that's, from the patient's perspective, making sure that injection goes well every time that they have a nuclear medicine procedure is absolutely important.
Mhm. Okay. Could the innovation which we are right now discussing, could that benefit other areas of healthcare
Ah,
as well?
yeah, that's a great question. So our technology can really only be used with radioactive materials. So while there are millions of other administrations of drugs going on in healthcare, our system actually only works if you're injecting or using a radioactive substance inside the patient. However, I would say that the sort of the lessons that we have learned about using our technology is that if there are processes in a healthcare system that are um, that are not being monitored right now, I think it's important to consider the lessons we've learned and to challenge those processes to make sure that best practices are being, determined for that process and then shared among other healthcare systems. I think that's a lesson that can be transferred from what we're
Yes.
finding in nuclear medicine.
And are there other solutions available for the addressing the same problem, and how
Yeah,
Lucerno Dynamics is different?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that if you're trying to identify if a patient has been extravasated, there are several ways that you can do that, right? You can put a Geiger counter on the patient.
Yeah.
You can use an ion chamber. You can put the patient's arm under the camera and see whether they've been extravasated. So there are other solutions. Do I think that they're as good as the LARA system? No, I don't. The LARA system does that, plus it helps assess how much radiation is there. And most importantly, as I said before, it gives information to the clinicians on what's causing their problems. And it's more difficult to do that with those other potential solutions.
Yeah. So Ron, what is your why, and why did you choose to solve this problem?
Yeah, that's a really another great question. To me, it's really down to two reasons. Okay, it's personal to me. Um, my wife is a breast cancer survivor, so nuclear medicine is used a lot in patients who have cancer, and I have two daughters, and they are at a higher risk
Yeah.
of having breast cancer because of the genetic
Mhm.
situation from their mom.
Yeah.
So when we stumbled upon this issue of radiopharmaceutical extravasations, it occurred to me that we had a solution to help reduce radiopharmaceutical extravasations almost down to nothing if people use our technology. And so part of me thinks that if we don't do what we're trying to do right now, and my daughters end up having breast cancer and needing a nuclear medicine procedure, and this problem still exists, that's unacceptable as a father for me to have allowed that to happen. So I've been working hard to make sure that all radiopharmaceuticals that are being delivered are being monitored in a way that's effective, and that we learn from those administrations so that we can continue to improve the process. So that's part of the why for me. And then there's a second part of the why, and that's along my journey. I was because I have the luck to be associated with some of the top physicians in nuclear medicine. One of those physicians actually mentioned to me in a meeting that he had convinced the regulatory agency in the United States 44 years ago that they didn't need to look at radiopharmaceutical extravasations when they were considering mistakes in nuclear medicine. And it's very interesting because the Nuclear Regulatory Commission was looking for errors that happen in the handling of radiopharmaceuticals that are the result of one of three things: human error, lack of training, and lack of quality procedures. And if an accident happened from one of those three things or a combination of those three things and resulted in a high radiation exposure to patients, that they wanted to know about it. That's a pretty good idea, because if they know about it, that what they were hoping to do is understand the root cause and then share that with everybody who does administrations or handles radio pharmaceuticals, so that that problem doesn't affect any other patient. And this one physician convinced the Nuclear Regulatory Commission that extravasations were virtually impossible to avoid, so there was no need to report them if you can't improve them. And that's just not true. I don't think it was true back then, and it's not true today. We know that you can almost completely eliminate radiopharmaceutical extravasations. We know that. There's clinical evidence to show that. In other parts of medicine, the extravasation rate has plummeted. So it makes no sense not to report these really large exposures to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And if that was going on, then the process would get better, because people would learn from these errors if they're being reported. And so, another reason why we're interested in addressing the situation is we think that that reason for not reporting is not correct, and that needs to be addressed. So that's the why for us. And frankly, Nilesh, I grew up in a cardiovascular company called Guidant Corporation, and that's where I got 20 some years of experience in medical devices. And our philosophy was always put the patient first, right? So if you do things to always put the patient first, that's a good thing to do. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Excellent. Impressive. And what personal and professional challenges you have faced in pursuing your why?
Oh, I have a both personal and professional challenges, right? So the personal challenge is there have been, there's always resistance to change, right? And so if you can imagine trying to take a process that has not been monitored really ever in the history of nuclear medicine, and now you're trying to put controls around that and report when these mistakes happen, if they do happen, there's a lot of resistance. And so the personal challenge I've had is there have been sort of character attacks on, the reason of the why, right? And so people have accused me and others, in our company of conflicts of interest, which I find really interesting, because our product is not necessary to solve the issue. What's necessary to solve the issue is increased training and giving the technologist the proper tools. So, my character has been attacked about doing this, the reason for doing this, and I stand by my personal whys. They stand up to scrutiny. I think the professional challenge is we're one small little company, right? And we're trying to make a big change. And so I think that's always a challenge when you're trying to get something done. You need more resources. And so we're always looking for partners to help us. And we appreciate you as a partner in getting the word out about this issue.
Sure. And we are quite thankful about you being generous in accepting our request to come on the podcast.
Sure.
So what is the future of you think of Lucerno Dynamics? What are the future plans for Lucerno Dynamics?
Yeah. So where we are right now is we're on the sort of the verge of commercializing the LARA system. We're actually looking for a partner to help us do that. And what's fascinating for us is I mentioned earlier that we stumbled upon this issue. So our technology was never developed just for this purpose. We accidentally discovered that patients were being extravasated by putting our sensors on the patient's arms. We have identified 14 other applications for our technology that can significantly improve healthcare and patients' lives. And so, for us, we want to commercialize the extravasation issue and we want to, or the extravasation product, and then we want to devote our energies to those 14 other applications that can improve healthcare. So we've got a lot to do. We've got a long way to go. And so we look forward to helping in other areas.
So good luck for all the endeavors of Lucerno Dynamics in future.
Oh, thank you.
So one last question: what is the future of nuclear medicine?
Oh gosh, I'm so excited about nuclear medicine because it's and as I said before, I'm not a physicist, right? And I'm not a doctor, but when I think of the potential of nuclear medicine, right, to be able to take a radioactive isotope, attach it to a drug, if you can make sure that drug goes to a cancer, for example, a cancer cell only, you can deliver a radioactive package right into the cancer cell. And this is what's happening now. It's been the last 10 years in nuclear medicine in places like Europe and Australia, and now it's coming to the US and other parts of the world, where you're delivering very specific radiation packages to cancer cells that can destroy the cancer cell without having implications on the rest of the patient's body, right? So think about the power of that. Finding every cancer cell in a patient, delivering a radioactive package that over a period of weeks or months will kill that cancer cell and keep it from replicating. To me, that's incredibly exciting. And, to be able to do that, to deliver an effective therapy without really toxic side effects is a great idea and a great hope for future patients of oncology patients and other patients. So I think that's just one area of nuclear medicine that's exciting. I told you before, I have two daughters. They're both engineers. I'm encouraging them. Nuclear medicine is the place to be, right? You want to get into this space because there's so much going on. It's so exciting, and it has so much benefit for patients, as long as it's administered properly, right? You need to make sure that administration is done very well and very effectively. So, yeah, I'm excited for nuclear medicine.
Yeah, so I think nuclear medicine is like a guided missile going to bombard on the cancer cells and destroy them permanently.
Yeah, and so what you can do with nuclear medicine is you can get an image to see where the cancer is. Then you can deliver a guided missile, as you said, right to the cancer cell, kill the cancer cell, and then do another nuclear medicine procedure where you image it to show that what you did was effective and that there's no more cancer, right? I mean, it's a perfect type of healthcare it's a perfect type of medicine application. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and really it is very exciting and giving lots of hope to the patients who are suffering with this particular disease.
I think you're exactly right.
Yeah. So here we come at the end of our episode, and I would like to thank you, Ron, for guiding us on the nuclear medicine, because a lot of people have so many questions, and I think our discussion today has given some hope, some guidance, some light on the nuclear medicine side. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I hope it's helped, and people can always reach out to us at lucerno.com if they have any questions at all. We're here to help.
Sure. And thank you everyone for listening to our episode. Thanks a lot.